Elias Carter spent most of his days riding alone across the quiet desert trails of the Southwest. He was a man who didn't need much, just his horse, his small ranch, and the peace that came with open skies. People in the nearby towns respected him. They said he was honest, calm, and never caused trouble. Elias liked life that way. He didn't go around expecting adventure, and he certainly never expected the kind of day that would change his life forever. It began in the late afternoon, when the sun was lowering behind the sandstone cliffs. Elias had delivered a few supplies to a small trading post and was riding home with a slow and steady pace. The desert wind was gentle, brushing through the dry grass. His horse, Dusty, walked with relaxed steps until something unusual made its ears twitch. At first, Elias didn't pay much attention, thinking it was just a coyote or rabbit. But then he heard a sharp cry. Faint, but full of fear. Elias stopped immediately. He listened carefully. The sound came again. It wasn't an animal. It was a child's voice. Without wasting a second, Elias guided Dusty toward the source. The cries grew louder as he approached a narrow ravine where loose rocks often broke away after rain. When he reached the edge and looked down, he saw a frightening sight. A young girl, maybe 12 years old, was trapped between fallen rocks. More rocks were balancing above her, and they looked ready to fall at any second. Elias didn't think about danger. He simply acted. He knew there wasn't much time. Dusty was tied to a small shrub, and Elias crawled down the steep side of the ravine. Dirt slid under his boots, and he nearly slipped, but he kept going. The girl's face was frightened, and she breathed quickly, trying not to move. "Help! I can't move," she whispered, in a trembling voice. "It's all right," Elias said gently. "I'm here. I'm going to get you out." He carefully pushed away the smaller rocks trapping her leg. Then he looked up at the large, dangerously balanced rocks. If he made one wrong move, they could fall on both of them. Elias steadied himself and moved slowly. The girl closed her eyes tight, trusting him without question. After several careful tries, he finally freed her leg. Elias told her to hold on to him, and she wrapped her arms around his chest. He lifted her and began climbing up the ravine. The slope was steep, and Elias could feel the pressure building behind him. A few rocks slid loose, tumbling down. He felt the girl shaking, so he tried to move faster. One large rock finally gave way and crashed where they had been just moments before. Elias didn't look back. He just climbed until his hand reached the edge, and he pulled them both to safety. Dusty neighed softly when he saw them. Elias set the girl down gently on her feet, checking if she was hurt. She winced a little but shook her head. "I'm okay," she whispered. "What's your name?" Elias asked softly. "Taya," she said. "My sisters. They will be worried. My village is not far." Her words told Elias that she was from the nearby Apache tribe. He had met many peaceful members of the tribe before, and they had always treated him with respect. He knew where their settlement was located. "All right, Taya, let's get you home." He lifted her onto Dusty's back and walked beside them. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold as they moved through the desert. Taya held Dusty's mane gently, calming down with each step. Elias kept checking on her to make sure she wasn't hurt worse than she said. When they approached the tribe's camp, 2 young warriors saw them and immediately called out. More people gathered quickly. Taya's 3 older sisters rushed toward her, tears in their eyes and relief on their faces. One hugged her tightly, while another checked her leg. But the mood changed suddenly, not in a dangerous way, but in a way Elias could not understand. People whispered. Heads turned. Eyes studied Elias closely. He felt confused. He had brought a child home safely. Why were they all looking at him, like he had stepped into something important? The chief stepped forward, an older man with long gray hair tied behind him and eyes full of wisdom. He looked at Elias with calm seriousness. "You brought back our youngest daughter," he said. "And not only brought her back, you saved her life." Elias nodded slowly. "It was nothing. I just did what anyone would do." In our tribe, saving a child is not a small thing," the chief replied. "Especially the youngest daughter of this family." Elias could feel everyone watching him. He didn't understand yet, but he sensed he had walked into a tradition he knew nothing about. The chief raised his hand, signaling for silence among the tribe. "There is a sacred law," he said, his voice echoing across the camp, "passed down from our ancestors. A law that honors a man who risks himself for one of our daughters." Elias stood still, unsure what was coming next. The chief continued. "The law says, he who saves the youngest daughter must take responsibility for the sisters who stand above her. If he is unmarried, the sisters shall join with him in unity, so the families become one, and the protector becomes part of our people." Elias blinked, not sure he heard correctly. "I'm sorry, sir. What does that mean?" Before the chief could answer, the four sisters stood side by side. They were all different in age and personality. The eldest looked calm and strong. The second had a sharp, cautious gaze. The third looked gentle and quiet. And the youngest, Taya, looked at Elias with simple trust. The chief spoke again. "By sacred law, saving the youngest means you must marry all four sisters, if you accept." Elias felt his heart drop. He almost stepped back. "Marry all four?" "Sir, I didn't know about this law. I only wanted to help the girl. I wasn't looking for anything like that." The tribe did not become angry. They weren't threatening him. They simply waited, watching with curiosity, as if this was the most normal tradition in their world. For them, it was. The eldest sister stepped forward. She introduced herself as Sahona. Her voice was calm, carrying strength. "This is a sacred rule for our tribe, but it is not forced. The decision belongs to you." Mesha, the second sister, crossed her arms and studied Elias. She clearly didn't trust outsiders easily. Kala, the third sister, offered a small, shy smile as she looked at him. Taya stayed close to Elias's side, still feeling safe with him. Elias felt overwhelmed. He had never been the type to run away from responsibility, but this was something he never imagined. He didn't want to disrespect the tribe, yet he didn't want to accept something he wasn't prepared for. The chief saw Elias's confusion and spoke gently. "Tonight, you will rest. Tomorrow, we will speak again. You will have time to understand our ways." The tribe gave him a guest tent near the fire. Elias sat inside for a long while, staring at the fabric walls, trying to make sense of everything. He had come here just to bring back a lost girl. But that small act had placed him inside a tradition that was older than he could imagine. He remembered the fear in Taya's eyes when he found her, and the relief on her sisters' faces when they saw she was safe. Without wanting to, he had become connected to them. They looked at him not as a stranger, but as someone chosen by fate. Elias lay awake long after the campfire grew dim. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know what decision he would make. All he knew was that saving one child had opened a door he never expected. And whatever path he chose, it would change his life completely. Elias woke the next morning with a mind full of questions. The early sunlight warmed the tent walls, and he could hear the quiet sounds of the tribe preparing for the day. Children were laughing somewhere near the river. Women were grinding corn. Warriors were sharpening tools and speaking in low voices. Life in the camp moved with steady rhythm, as if nothing unusual had happened. But for Elias, everything felt different. He stepped out of the tent and saw Sahona, the eldest sister, waiting near the fire. She greeted him with a calm nod. Her expression was gentle but serious, like someone who understood difficult decisions. "Good morning, Elias," she said. "Did you sleep well?" Not exactly, he admitted with a small smile. She seemed to understand without needing further explanation. Elias followed her to a small blanket where simple food was laid out: corn cakes, berries, and warm tea. Kala, the third sister, was already there, sitting quietly as she braided a rope. She gave Elias a shy smile. Mesha, the second sister, stood with her arms crossed, watching him closely. And Taya, the youngest, sat beside Kala, swinging her legs and smiling brightly when she saw him. Elias sat down carefully. The four sisters were each so different. Sahona had a leader's grace. Misha had a fire in her eyes, always alert and cautious. Kala was gentle, and her quiet nature made her almost blend into the background. Taya was still young, full of innocence and simple trust. Mesha spoke first, as if she could not hold back. Before anything, I need to say something. We do not know you. You are from the outside. Our sacred law is old, but it is not blind. You must prove you are someone who honors his word. Elias nodded calmly. Sahona placed a hand on Mesha's elbow. He saved Taya. That already means something. Mesha didn't argue, but she didn't look convinced either. Kala looked up from her rope. We only want to understand you, she whispered softly. Taya leaned toward Elias. I'm glad you came back, she said, simply. The breakfast continued quietly. Elias didn't try to impress anyone. He just spoke honestly when they asked him questions. They wanted to know about his ranch, his work, how he lived, and if he had anyone waiting for him. He told them he lived alone. His parents had passed long ago, and he had never married because life kept him too busy and too quiet for romance. The sisters listened, each reacting differently. Sahona looked understanding. Kala's eyes softened. Misha's expression changed only slightly, but Elias noticed she relaxed a little. Taya seemed pleased to learn he had no family, like she was happy he didn't have a place he needed to hurry back to. After breakfast, Sahona invited Elias to walk with her around the camp. She wanted to explain the sacred law in more detail. They walked past small huts and fire pits, and everywhere they went, people greeted them with respect. The sacred law is not something that forces a man or woman into anything, Sahona said. It is a tradition that honors protection. If a man saves the youngest sister, it means he has the courage to protect all of us. In ancient times, this law prevented family lines from breaking apart after wars or disasters. It gave daughters a protector and gave the tribe unity. Elias listened carefully. And if I refuse, what happens then? You will not be harmed, Sahona answered quickly. But our people will be disappointed. Not angry, only sad. Because when the law is not accepted, it means the spirits do not unite our families. Elias appreciated her honesty. She was not trying to pressure him. She was simply telling him the truth. Later, Kala joined them as they walked. She took Elias to see the garden she helped tend. She spoke softly, pointing out which herbs healed wounds and which plants were used for food. She avoided direct eye contact most of the time, but Elias could see she liked the calm and peaceful things in life. She reminded him of quiet mornings on the ranch when the sun rose slowly and everything felt soft. Kala paused and finally looked at him directly. If the decision is too heavy, do not feel rushed, she said. We understand if your world is different. You can choose, freely. Her gentle words eased some of the weight in his chest. As they returned to the main camp, Mesha approached with a straight posture. She looked at Elias firmly. Come with me. I want to see what kind of man you are. Elias didn't argue. He followed her to the far side of the camp, where a broken fence surrounded several goats. Overnight, some of the wood had snapped, and the tribe's workers had not yet begun repairing it. Mesha handed Elias an axe and a piece of new wood. If you want people to trust you here, you should show you can work beside us. Elias smiled a little. I don't mind work, He began chopping the wood with steady, strong swings. Mesha watched closely, arms still crossed. Elias didn't complain. He didn't try to show off. He worked the same way he did at his ranch, patiently and carefully. When he placed the new wood in the fence and tied it with rope, Mesha inspected it closely. "It's good," she admitted. "Better than I expected." Elias didn't take offense. "You're protective of your family. I'd be the same." For the first time, Mesha's expression softened. She didn't smile, but her eyes showed respect. "Our father is old. That is why I am careful. The world outside has not always been kind to us." Elias nodded. "Then your caution makes sense." By midday, most of the tribe had formed an opinion about Elias. Some liked him immediately. Some were unsure. But everyone agreed he was calm, respectful, and never acted as if he was better than them. The afternoon brought another unexpected moment. Several children gathered around Elias, asking questions about his horse. He led Dusty from the edge of the camp, and the kids gasped at the sight of the golden-brown animal. Dusty lowered his head gently and allowed the children to pet him. Even Kala and Taya joined them, smiling as they stroked Dusty's soft mane. Sahona watched from a short distance, thoughtful. Mesha stood beside her. "He is patient," Sahona said quietly. He did not push Taya away when she followed him everywhere. Mesha nodded slightly. "He's different from others we've met." That evening, the tribe lit a large fire in preparation for the sacred decision ceremony that would take place the next day. The smell of food filled the air: roasted corn, warm bread, and stew. People danced and talked, celebrating nothing in particular, just enjoying the rhythm of life. Elias sat near the fire, deep in thought. He had spent the entire day learning about the sisters and their world. Sahona had wisdom. Mesha had strength. Kala had gentleness. And Taya had innocence and trust. They weren't just four random people. They were a family with bonds, history, and hopes. Taya sat beside him, leaning her head on his arm. "Are you going to stay?" she asked, in a quiet voice. Elias looked down at her. She wasn't pressuring him. She just wanted to know if the man who saved her would still be part of her life. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. "But I'm thinking." Taya nodded as if that was enough. Later, Sahona approached him. The firelight reflected in her eyes. "Tomorrow, the whole tribe will gather," she said. "You will speak your decision. No matter what you choose, we will respect you." Elias appreciated her honesty and her calm strength. He felt a strange connection to all four sisters. Not romantic, but real. Something built from shared experiences in a single day. Before going to sleep, Elias walked a little outside the camp, needing fresh air to think. He looked up at the clear night sky filled with stars. His life had always been simple, but now he stood at a crossroads he never expected. He had come here just to return a lost child. He had no idea that by saving Taya, he had stepped into a world with traditions older than he could imagine. And now, four sisters, each unique in their own way, were watching to see if he would join their lives or walk away forever. Elias took a deep breath and looked toward the camp where warm firelight flickered. Tomorrow he would choose. But tonight, he simply stood there, trying to understand what his heart truly wanted. The sun rose slowly the next morning, painting the sky with soft colors of gold and pale orange. It was the day of the sacred decision ceremony, the day Elias Carter had to speak openly in front of the entire tribe. He had been awake since dawn, thinking, walking, and trying to understand what his heart was telling him. He wasn't afraid of hard work or responsibility, but this choice was unlike anything he had faced before. Him, a quiet cowboy from the outskirts of town, standing between four sisters and an ancient law that connected families across generations. As he walked through the camp, people nodded respectfully at him. Some offered warm smiles. Children waved. Elders watched him with eyes full of curiosity and hope, wondering what choice he would make. Elias didn't feel judged, only expected to speak the truth, whatever it was. Sahona, the eldest sister, approached him near the water barrels. She looked calm as always, her long hair braided neatly behind her. "It is almost time," she said in her gentle voice. "I know," Elias answered quietly. "You do not have to decide with fear," Sahona said. "Whatever you choose it with a clear heart." Elias appreciated her words. Sahona was a woman who carried responsibility without complaint. She had the steadiness of a leader and the patience to guide those around her. If he joined this family, she would be the one helping him understand their world. Before Elias could reply, Mesha appeared from behind another tent, her arms crossed as usual. "Just make sure you're honest," she told him sharply. "If you don't want this, say it. Don't pretend." Elias nodded. "I'm not the pretending kind. I'm not the pretending kind." Mesha didn't smile, but she didn't frown either. Her sharpness was not anger. It was honesty. She wanted to protect her sisters from disappointment. Elias respected that more than she knew. Kala came next, carrying a small woven basket with fresh fruit. She looked nervous but offered him an orange anyway. "For strength," she said softly. Elias took it with a grateful smile. "Thank you." Taya arrived last, running to him with excitement. She held something in her hands, 4 small feathers tied together with a thin leather string. "I made this," she said proudly. "It means we want good things for you today." Elias knelt to her level and accepted the small gift. "I'll keep it with me," he promised. When the time came, the entire tribe gathered in a wide circle around the central fire pit. The chief, dressed in traditional ceremonial clothing, stood at the front. His presence alone created a sense of calm and respect. The sisters stood together on one side of the fire. Elias stood opposite them. Every pair of eyes was watching him, but the air was peaceful, not tense. The chief raised his staff. "We gather today for the sacred decision ceremony. A life was saved, and through that act, a bond was created. But a bond must be accepted freely. The man who stands before us has shown courage and kindness. Now we give him the voice to speak what his heart has chosen." The fire crackled softly. A breeze passed through the circle. Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward. Before he could speak, something unexpected happened. From the outer edge of the camp, loud voices approached. Someone shouted a warning, then another. People turned their heads. Elias turned too. A group of riders appeared, about 7 in total. They weren't from the tribe. Their clothes were dusty, their faces rough, and their eyes sharp like men searching for trouble. The tribe knew them outsiders who sometimes tried to steal horses or food from traveling groups. The chief raised his hand, signaling caution. The riders stopped near the edge of the circle. Their leader, a tall man with a red bandana, sneered. "We're not here to fight," he said loudly. "We're here for trade." But everyone could see they hadn't come for anything peaceful. Mesha whispered to Sahona, "They're lying." Elias stepped slightly forward, scanning the men carefully. He had seen their type before. They didn't respect boundaries. They didn't respect tribes. They only respected what they could take. One of the riders pointed toward the tribe's horses, tied near the river. "We'll take 5 of those," he said boldly. "And maybe a few supplies. We won't take much." The chief's voice remained calm. "These horses belong to our people. You will take nothing." The leader laughed. "Old man." Before the situation could grow worse, one of the riders suddenly moved toward the horses. A few tribe members tensed, ready to defend themselves. Elias saw Mesha step forward out of instinct. Her jaw tightened, hands clenched. The rider moved faster than expected, lifting a rope to grab the nearest horse. Elias didn't think. He reacted. He rushed forward and grabbed the man's wrist before he could throw the rope. The rider was surprised but swung his free arm to push Elias back. Elias blocked the hit, grabbed the man's shoulder, and shoved him away from the animals. The tribe gasped. The other riders instantly grew tense. The leader shouted, "You want trouble, cowboy?" Elias didn't look afraid. "These people don't want to fight, so ride away." The leader smirked cruelly. "You think you can stop us alone?" "You'll have to get past me," Elias said calmly. For a moment, there was only silence. The riders stared at Elias, then at the tribe, then back at Elias. Something shifted in the air. Sahona stepped closer, standing behind Elias. Mesha joined too, her eyes burning with defiance. Kala and Taya stayed with their people, watching with anxious eyes. Tribe warriors tightened their grip on weapons. The leader realized this wasn't going to be easy. He spat on the ground. "Fine, we'll leave, but don't think this is over." The riders turned their horses and galloped away, their dust trailing behind them. It took several long moments before the tension softened and people relaxed. The chief turned to Elias, his face filled with deep respect. "You protected our people." Without hesitation. Mesha spoke strangely softly. "You didn't even think about danger." Sahona touched Elias's arm gently. "You acted as one of us." Kala looked relieved, her eyes shining. Taya beamed with pride. Elias wasn't sure what to say. He hadn't acted to impress anyone. He just did what he believed was right. The tribe gathered again, this time with even more attention on him. The chief raised his staff once more. "The spirits have shown us something today," he said. "A man does not need to be born in a tribe to hold the heart of one." He looked at Elias. "You may now speak your decision." Elias stepped slowly toward the fire. The crackling sound filled the quiet space. He looked at each of the sisters. At Sahona, who carried wisdom. At Misha, who carried strength. At Kala, who carried gentleness. At Taya, who carried innocence and trust. He remembered how they treated him the last 2 days, not as a stranger, but as someone important. He remembered the people's kindness, the children's laughter, the way the tribe worked together like one big family. He realized that even though this tradition was new to him, the meaning behind it was honest and full of respect. Elias took a deep breath. "I came here just to save a child," he began slowly. "I didn't expect any of this, but I've seen your world. I've seen your kindness, your strength, and your unity. I don't know everything about your traditions, but I know this: I will not walk away from something that fate placed in my hands." He paused, feeling the weight of his words. "If it is truly your sacred law, if it is truly your wish, then I accept." The crowd erupted into warm cheers and soft laughter. Some clapped, some nodded in approval. Taya ran to Elias and hugged him around the waist. Kala smiled shyly. Mesha placed a hand on her chest, as if trying to hide her surprised relief. Sahona bowed her head respectfully. 2-1. The chief raised his voice over the sounds of celebration. Today, 2 worlds join. Today, a protector becomes part of our family. Elias looked around at the faces glowing with joy and pride. His path was no longer uncertain. He had made his decision not out of pressure, not out of fear, but because something deep inside him had shifted. By saving one child, he had become part of something far bigger. The celebration of Elias's acceptance lasted long into the evening, but when the new day arrived, life in the tribe returned to its natural rhythm. The sun warmed the earth. Drums echoed in soft rhythms, and the sisters carried out their usual responsibilities. Yet something had changed. Elias was no longer a visitor. He was now part of their future. The tribe had welcomed him warmly, but he knew he had a duty ahead. The 4 sisters were not just connected to him through a ceremony, they were real people, with real lives, hopes, and struggles. Elias wanted to stand beside them, not because the law said so, but because his heart felt responsible for them. The chief called Elias to speak with him early in the morning. Elias walked to the large hut, where the chief usually held important conversations. The old man sat on a woven mat near a fire pit, calm and wise as always. "You made a brave choice," the chief said. "Now you must prepare for the path ahead. A family is not built in one day. You must grow roots here, and they must grow roots with you." Elias nodded respectfully. "I understand. But I also have a ranch, Chief. My home is outside the tribe. I want to build a place where the sisters can be safe, but still close to their people." The chief smiled knowingly, as if he had been expecting this. A bond between two worlds should not break either one. "We will help you build a home strong enough for a family as big as the one you now have." Elias didn't know what to say. The chief wasn't just accepting him, he was supporting him in every way. For a man who lived alone for years, that kind of support felt new but comforting. Later that morning, Elias walked through the camp, where the sisters waited together. Sahona approached first, as she always did. She had a natural sense of responsibility, a calm strength that seemed to keep everything balanced. "We heard you spoke with our father," she said with a steady smile. "He says you want to build a home near your ranch." Elias nodded. "I want you to have space, safety, and comfort. Life on the ranch can be peaceful, but the house is small. I'll need to build more rooms." Sahona's expression softened. "We will help you, and so will the tribe." Mesha, standing slightly behind her, crossed her arms, but for once there was no suspicion in her eyes, only curiosity. "A home built with many hands lasts longer," she said simply. "We'll make sure it's strong." Kala stepped forward quietly. "I can help gather things. Blankets, food, small things for comfort. I want the home to feel warm." Taya moved beside Elias and held onto his arm lightly. "And I'll help too," she announced proudly. "I'll carry light things." Elias felt a warm feeling spread through his chest. Their unity, even before the new home was built, made him realize just how deeply connected he already felt to them. For the next several days, the tribe worked together to prepare supplies. Men cut strong wooden beams. Women wove blankets and baskets. Children gathered stones and clay. Elias worked harder than ever, not because he needed to prove anything, but because he wanted to be worthy of the trust they had placed in him. The sisters helped in their own ways. Sahona planned the structure of the home, giving sensible suggestions about where rooms should go and how the living area should be arranged. Mesha gathered sturdy branches and ensured nothing weak was used for support. Kala crafted small woven decorations that would bring comfort to the walls and windows. Taya collected flowers, insisting that the new home needed color. When everything was ready, Elias led the way toward his ranch, with dozens of tribe members following. The land around his ranch stretched wide and open. There was water nearby, clean soil, and enough space for a large family. The tribe approved immediately. Building the home took several days. Elias cut wood, hammered nails, and carried heavy beams. The tribe's men helped raise walls and roofs. The sisters worked beside him. Even Taya held buckets of clay with pride, feeling important with every step. During the construction, Elias learned even more about the sisters. Sahona's leadership showed in the way she calmly guided people on where to place stones or how to secure wooden frames. Misha worked fiercely, refusing to rest until every board was strong enough. Kala moved gently, but never stopped helping. Even small tasks she performed with care. Taya brought laughter to the site, lifting everyone's spirits whenever they felt tired. In the evenings, after long hours of work, the tribe gathered around a fire outside the ranch. They shared stories, songs, and simple meals. Elias sat with the sisters, watching them interact with each other. They talked about their childhood memories, laughed at old stories, and asked Elias questions about his ranch life. They were opening their world to him, slowly, naturally. One night, after the fire had grown low, Sahona spoke quietly. "You accepted the sacred law," she said. "But I want to know how you feel now. Not about responsibility, but about us." Elias looked at her, seriously. "I don't feel forced. Not for a moment. I made the choice because something in me wanted to protect your family. And now that I know you more, I feel something stronger. I feel like I belong here." Mesha looked away, trying to hide the emotion in her eyes. Kala smiled softly, and Taya leaned against Elias's arm with peaceful trust. By the end of the week, the house stood tall, strong walls, a wide porch, multiple rooms, and a large central area where a family could gather. It wasn't fancy, but it was warm, sturdy, and full of life. The sisters walked through it slowly, touching the walls, smiling at the windows, imagining their future inside. "It's beautiful," Kala whispered. "It's strong," Misha said with approval. "It feels like home," Sahona added with pride. Taya ran into one of the rooms and shouted, "This one is mine." Everyone laughed softly, and Elias felt something inside him settle. This wasn't just a house. It was a beginning. When the tribe returned to their camp the next day, the sisters stayed behind with Elias at the ranch for the first time. It wasn't a departure. It was a connection. The tribe would visit often, bringing news and support. The sisters would still return for ceremonies and family gatherings. Elias had not taken them away from their people. He had simply expanded their world. Over the next weeks, the sisters brought new energy to the ranch. Sahona organized the supplies, making sure everything had its place. Misha trained the horses, showing Elias that she had a natural talent with animals. Kala planted flowers and herbs around the home, turning it into a peaceful space filled with color and gentle scents. Taya followed Elias everywhere, learning how to feed the animals and laughing whenever Dusty sneezed on her. Elias felt life changing around him. The once quiet ranch was now full of laughter, voices, footsteps, and warmth. He no longer ate alone. He no longer worked alone. Every morning, he woke up to a world that felt fuller than anything he had known before. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills and painted the sky pink and orange, Elias stood on the porch. The sisters gathered beside him, each one content in her own way. The warm wind carried the smell of the land he loved, mixed with the sounds of the family he had gained. Sahona placed her hand on the railing and said softly, "Your life will never be the same." Elias nodded. "I wouldn't want it any other way." Kala leaned gently against the post. "We are grateful. You didn't walk away." Mesha looked at Elias with a small, rare smile. "Not many men would make the choice you made." Taya squeezed his arm. "You saved me, and you saved all of us." Elias looked out at the open land, the sky, the home they built together, and the four sisters who now stood with him, not as strangers forced by tradition, but as people united by trust, respect, and shared destiny. He took a deep breath and felt a deep sense of peace settle in his heart. In saving one child, he had gained a family, and in accepting a sacred law, he had found a life he never imagined but one he would protect forever.